Hey there, and welcome to Innovate Place's walkthrough on how to create a pop-up on your website. Keep in mind that this is strictly for WordPress websites, and if you are using something like Shopify or Squarespace, they may have plugins that are strictly for their platforms that could help you kind of get the same outcome as what I'm showing here. If you're using Wix or if you have a custom website, it is probably better to reach out to the customer service or your developers in order to have something created for you. Typically, pop-ups are used for subscribing or coupon notices or sale notices, but in the times like when I'm recording this video with coronavirus, it might be a good idea to inform your users of changes that are happening within your business so that you can continue having revenue flow of some sort while there may be like a stay in shelter in place. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have the dashboard here. This is a WordPress login. So in order to get started, please log into your WordPress dashboard, which would be using, as you can see up here, the /wp-admin. Before you get started on making any changes with your website, it is highly recommended, and I would almost go as far as to say a requirement, to do a backup on your website. Installing things like plugins or even making minor content changes on your website can be dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. So please create a backup before you make any changes to your website or install any plugins. For this specific walkthrough, we are going to be using a plugin. I'll show you how to search for it. It is an actual pop-up maker is the name of it. So in order for us to get started, we do need to search for it. So once your backup is in place, you will go to the actual plugin back on here, click Add New. Once you get to this screen here, you will type in Pop-up Maker. Keep in mind that the search bar here does not really allow for misspellings or partial searches. So you do need to type in pop-up space maker. And then from there, you can see the actual pop-up maker here, which is made by Pop-up Maker. One of the things that we tell a lot of our clients at Innovate Place is that you should check for the active installations, the reviews, and if it's compatible with your version of WordPress. If you are not maintaining your website personally, or you do not have somebody that you pay to do this, this is particularly important. So this little bar here underneath plugins that you are searching is really important to read. So what you're going to do is, once your backup is in place, and I can't say it enough, you're going to go ahead and install this. And you also kind of want to see when it's last updated. Usually if this gets to a month's measurement, like they haven't updated it in the last month, it's kind of questionable, since WordPress is doing updates near monthly in order to keep their platform stable. So now that you have it installed, you can activate it. Now that it is activated, it will show up inside of your plugins listing, and it will be in the blue instead of the white, showing that it's actually activated. And it will be on your left-hand menu now, where you can see it with all of its extensions here. So with that and it being activated, let's go ahead and click on it. You'll see at the top that there are the buttons for adding a new pop-up and also doing a theme. I'm not going to go into themes with this one because the importance is getting this up as quickly as possible typically. So we're going to go to add a new pop-up. Keep in mind that if you have a builder inside of your website like Elementor or WP Bakery, it's going to change how this works. It'll work just like your pages. You'll be able to plug in the builder, and this plugin will work with just about any builder that you have because it does operate like a page. So in this case, we're going to name it. So this is going to be test pop-up. You don't need to do any sort of additional here. This is completely optional. So we're going to say this is a test to let users know we are changing something in our business. So this is going to be essentially the message that you're putting out there. Of course, we always recommend that you put headers on things. So for example, if I said notice to users, and I made this like an H2, it's going to show up a little bit bigger, and maybe we want to center everything so that it kind of has that appeal to it. I suppose a lot of people center things when it comes to pop-ups. So we're going to save it and actually publish it so that we can make changes to it. So one of the things that I want to do now that I have this in place and I've created it is I want to come down to the settings so that I can make it look the way that I want it to, and also restrict where it is seen and how many times it is seen. So a user experience, typically, you only really want to show a pop-up when it's absolutely necessary. For example, if you're doing a subscribe pop-up, there's a good chance that a user comes to your website once, maybe twice a month if they're a regular shopper for you. So maybe you want to do their subscribe pop-up for your newsletter once a month. But if you're making major changes, like during this coronavirus lockdown, you may want to do it once a week or maybe every 4 days, depending on how much your operations are changing, or if your business is struggling with something. You could keep telling users something over and over. So for the display, typically what I do here is I create something that is easy for users to close so that they're not stuck in the window. So for the theme down here, I usually go right into Lightbox, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we're going to change it to Lightbox, and we're going to go ahead and preview it. And this is what it looks like. Of course, your text is going to probably look different on your website, but this clearly needs a little more weight to it. Be aware of what your pop-up looks like before you actually publish it. Now that we know what that looks like, we can go ahead and work on the actual targeting. So in the case of my website, I would like for as soon as people to come to the homepage to see this. So my conditional would be that I would select a specific page. So I want to go to pages selected. It's a little bit of a scroll down, but if I go to pages selected, it'll then let me select all the pages that I have, which currently this is a brand new install that I made of WordPress. I have a sample page and I have the privacy policy. So my sample page right now is my home page. I know, it might be a little confusing. So I'm going to update that. So now when I go to what is currently my sample page and I reload it, I'm going to continue to see it, but only here. Whoops, reload. Oh, I forgot to do the cookie. Well, let's back up a little bit here. So we actually need a trigger. So I don't want to click to open. I want it to auto open. So in the case of somebody loading into my website, I want it to be something that automatically pops up. So I'm going to select this. And I do want to set up a cookie. What the cookie does is it puts a notification into the cache of the user stating that you've already done this, or we have a history listed to this, and we're going to let the website know that you're visiting right now, that we already have this history with you. So by creating this cookie, you're allowing for users to kind of streamline their visits over time. So by setting up the cookie, you're not spamming them, essentially. So I usually set these up in order to give that time limit that I talked about before. So in this case, everything is measured in milliseconds. So if I do 1500 milliseconds, that's 1.5 seconds, which means it gives users 1.5 seconds to actually load into my site before I show them a pop-up. This helps with, like, if you have larger images on your website or a large slider or things of that sort. I usually add a little more time. So in this case, maybe you want to do 2 full seconds. So we're going to add that. Okay, so if we go back and update, let's see what happens. Oh, there it went. It just took a little while. My 2 seconds, I'm so used to using 1 or 1.5. So let's go back to 1.5 and update. Now, the really interesting thing is I have to click this X button for it to store my cookie. So if I refresh it right now, it should still pop up in 1.5 seconds. And now you have a notification to your users. And if I click the X and I reload it again, it should be cached that now I don't see it again. So that is how you create a pop-up. If you have any questions or any feedback, please leave comments below. We are also going to be doing coverage on how to create a banner across the top of your site, like maybe above your main menu. And we're also going to talk about how to push these notifications to a blog post or link to additional areas where you may be able to give users additional either feedback or notifications about what you're doing. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below and feel free to like and subscribe. Thanks so much, guys.